I have the Elsa shirt because we get to talk about an ice guy. And it's kind of the only shirt that I have that implies snow that's not a Christmas shirt. So, well, let's talk about chapter 1081. Yeah. So, One Piece chapter 1081. We get another very big, epic stuff in this chapter again. A lot of good matchups and an ending that we'll see what I think about when I get to the end of the chapter. So, the cover of Shonen Jump is actually a picture of a bunch of the different shonen protagonists that they currently have. Like we see Asta and Deku and Luffy all dressed as they're all in like cat outfits. And then Luffy has a fish. So there's a bunch of them. I don't know all of them. It looks cute. And then we move to the cover page for One Piece. And that one is actually it just looks like all the different guys from the Straw Hats all just like sleeping. And then there's Bubbles and Squirrels. And like Sanji's reading something and everybody else is just asleep. I looked over the thing. I didn't see Nami and I didn't see Robin. So it's just all the guys. So they had like a giant sleepover in like the men's dormitory in the boys' dorm room that they have on the boat. And then like there's a bunch of Bubbles and Squirrels, which is funny. Nice happy cover page considering what we're going to see in the chapter. Yeah. So basically the chapter starts off at the exact place that the one from last week ended, with Garp doing his galaxy impact punch whatever into Hachinosu. And the chapter is titled Kuzan, 10th Captain of the Blackbeard Pirate. So this basically just confirms that Kuzan is the 10th Titanic captain, which pretty much most of us figured already. Which if he wasn't, and there was a different one that they were going to introduce, that was going to be exceedingly surprising, but not at the moment. This was not surprising. Garp just sends a whole bunch of the other pirates flying, and of course the ship, the Navy ship that Garp used to get onto the island, is falling, and Prince Groose uses a bunch of his clay to soften the impact so that way it lands safely, so it doesn't cause damage to the ship or the other people that are on the ship, like Tashigi and Helmeppo and whoever else is on the ship at the moment. So we get that. It's like clay ordination, I think is what it translated to. So not too much interesting there. We get a bunch of the pirates being angry that Garp attacked them, which you're pirates, he's a Marine. There's far worse things he could do in regards to attacking you. So yeah, don't at him at that. You're his enemies. You kidnapped his apprentice. So also your captain is responsible for the death of one of his grandsons. So yeah. There's that. So what we also see, we get glimpses of Tashigi and Helmeppo and the others, and Garp kind of makes a comment of looks like I'm a little bit rusty, and or I'm losing my touch or whatever, and I'm just okay, Garp, sure, you're losing your touch. Mm-hmm. And all the other pirates are just what do you mean you lost your touch? This is not losing your touch. You kind of destroyed our island and at the very least left a crater in it. Crazy old man. And we see Koby and he's exceedingly happy to see Garp. And he's happy to, we see Helmeppo and he's really, really happy to see Koby. And he's just why did you get captured? He's happy to see Koby, which just shows how much Koby and Helmeppo mean to each other as friends and all of that. We saw all of that build up through the Koby Meppo cover page and everything like that. So I love how they did that. And how we've seen just how much they care about each other. Helmeppo, with everything that happened, Heppo, it's if you told someone who's just starting One Piece and doesn't really know anything about it, and they're introduced to Helmeppo in the first 3 chapters, and by the end of Shellstown, and they're just that boy, the boy who just had the gun to the pink boy's head. Yeah. Uh, he ends up actually being a really good character, and him and Kobe end up being best friends, and Helmeppo's a great Marine and everything. You're just a person to just be like, okay. It's like you don't expect it to go that way. That's not where you expect that to go. But that is one of the things we love about Oda. So we're seeing a bunch of them, and Kobe is still somewhat flabbergasted that they came to help him. That that everybody came to save him. We see Prince Groose, and he's just like, I can't believe that he just called Kobe the future of the Marines. I can't let him get ahead of me. So I'm just like, Prince Groose has ambition, admittedly. Also, the point I was trying to make was that Helmeppo had gone to Prince Groose and the others to try to get them to come and help save Kobe, and then Garp showing up is what just like pushed everybody into action. So, there's that. Shows how much Helmeppo cares about Kobe and the bond of their friendship, the strength of that friendship, which I love. We also see Kujaku, who is there, and she's just, Garp son sure is a naughty boy running wild like that. And I'm just like, okay. Kujaku, your dominatrix is snowing, which is pretty much implied given her devil fruit. Yeah. And she's like, say whatever you want behind their backs, but you can't deny their bond is wholesome and cute. And I'm like, Garp did kind of, beat Kobe and Helmeppo up a lot when they were training, but sure, we can go with wholesome and cute. How much training did your grandmother give you? Yeah. And, Kobe and the other, Kobe's exceedingly happy to see all of them, and he's just surprised that even, Tashigi is there. Because she's like, even non-sword members, which pretty much just like confirms that Tashigi and Smoker are definitely not sword members, or at the very least, maybe not until like this moment, or not until like after this mission, depending on how it goes. Tashigi may be made a member of sword, depending on what we get a little bit more for information about that. I'm still very skeptical of what Kuzan said in the last chapter, where he's just like, well, sword members are Marines that like handed in their Marine cards. That way, if they do something against a Yonko or something like that, the world government can just disown them. And I'm just like, I don't know exactly where I fall for that. It's like part of that might be true. Part of it's possibly just BS to mess with Blackbeard. We'll see. And then, we just see, Hibari's really happy to see everyone too. And, she's like, we gotta get this, ball and chain off of Kobe's ankle. And then we just see Garp's, like, somewhat shocked face. And then Hibari gets frozen. And we see Kobe concerned. We see Kujaku concerned. And we just see Garp looking somewhat horrified. And that's when we see that Kuzan is there. Because, of course, I was like trying to think. The only other, cold devil fruit we've seen is the Yuki Yuki no Mi that, Monet had. And she's dead. And we have no idea if anyone's gotten that devil fruit. And even if they did, without a huge amount of training already, they would not be able to literally flash freeze someone that quickly. So that, of course, and I was like, for all the different heat-based devil fruits we've seen that are like canon and non-canon and all of that, I'm somewhat surprised we haven't had really any other like ice and cold type devil fruits beyond the Hiya Hiya no Mi and the Yuki Yuki no Mi. I'm like, we haven't really had any other ones, not that I can think of, unless I'm just missing one. I mean, and I'm sure that there can be like a Paramecia version of it out there somewhere that can be, designed to, like absorb the heat out of something and make it freeze and make it cold. But I'm just like, we haven't really seen anything else that would apply to that. So, but obviously this is Kuzan, and, Garp's yelling at her, just, hurry up and unfreeze Hibari, what are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. He's scolding him. And then we just see all the other pirates on the island are just like really, really happy to see Aokiji and, see Kuzan and everything. And, Kuzan's just like, I've had a it'll be bad if I let you take Kobe while Teach is away. And, you know, as much as we want to, I'm just like, I'm still like hedging my bets toward Kuzan being like part of Sword or being willing to like betray Blackbeard, that type of a thing, worming his way in there and everything. I'm still, like most of us, we're still hedging our bets in that direction. But then we get this flashback where we see that so I think it's supposed to be a year after Aokiji and uh, Akainu had their battle on Punk Hazard to determine who was going to be the new, fleet admiral. And of course, as we know, Aokiji lost that, and then Akainu became the fleet admiral and did everything that he did with the Marines. And we just kind of assume that during that time frame, after he, left Punk Hazard, that Kuzan, given what we saw of him so far post time skip, that he just kind of wandered around for a little while. And, after he probably healed up and everything like that, got medical treatment, probably from the Marines, even, because Akainu may have been like, give him medical treatment, whatever. He lost. I'm the new fleet admiral, give him medical treatment, and then he's gone, get him out of here, or whatever the case was. And then Kuzan just left. And then we kind of see this island. I don't know how to describe it. It looks like well, first of all, it looks like just like a quaint little town on the island. And then it looks like there's just giant rock, and then it turns into a hot air balloon, which we have a water tower here in Nebraska that kind of looks like that. Actually, a lot of water towers look like that, but we have one specifically in a town called York that's about an hour away from Lincoln that is big and bright and rainbow colored. And this somewhat reminds me of that, just because it'd be like this big thing popping and all of that. So it's just kind of fun. That just made me think of that. But we see a bunch of the Blackbeard pirates show up at this island, and then we also see that San Juan Wolf has been frozen, along with probably a bunch of other, the lackeys and anybody else that was there at that point in time have been frozen by Aokiji. And, Blackbeard shows up and he's just like, hey, what are you doing? Release my crew, blah, 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 blah. And Kuzan's just like, you really don't want to use your Gura powers right now, because if one wrong move and your entire crew is going to be shattered. I'm like, yes, that is an exceedingly good way of dealing with Blackbeard, because that is actually a very, 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 very good way of dealing with Blackbeard, because we, of course, know that one of his main powers is, of course, the Gura no Mi. His Yami no Mi powers may not be all that difficult against the ice, but he still doesn't want to destroy his crew members, or at the very least not any of the his other Titanic captains and any of the other really strong ones. A bunch of the riffraff I don't think care about, but Blackbeard, as much as he's not he's not the Luffy type captain where he will do anything for his crew. He's more like, well, I don't want them to get hurt or whatever, because then I don't have as much of a fighting force type of a thing. That's Blackbeard's way of doing it. So no, he's not going to use his Gura no Mi, because he would risk shattering his own crew, or at the very least San Juan and some of the other strong ones that are frozen. And Aokiji is just like, I'm really not in a good place at this point in time. He's just like sitting at the bar drinking. He's just like, I'm sure you heard what happened. I am not in a good place right now. So yeah, I don't really want to deal with you. Plus, your crew, and you've seen me. They were the ones that started this. I was defending myself, type of a thing. And, so we get that moment where we're just like, yeah, that's Dax. That lines up. He's just like, yeah, I'm not in a good mood. I'm just like, I'm picturing this like an old West saloon, which maybe this town is somewhat based on that, I don't know, but like I'm picturing this like an old West saloon, and it's just like the lone gunslinger came to town, and he's just not in a good mood, just sitting there drinking his sorrows away for whatever reason. And then like someone else walks in that's like not necessarily a rival, but not like someone that he's on exceedingly good terms with, and it's just like, I am not in a good mood. You do not want to make me angry right now. I am here to drink away my sorrows. Your guys bothered me. That's why they're outside frozen. They'll thaw. I just that's just I'm just getting that old West Saloon vibes right there. Um, then we of course cut to like I don't know, maybe a couple of hours later or whatever, and we see Blackbeard and Kuzan are just laughing away. San Lone Wolf's been unfrozen. Probably the rest of them have all been unfrozen, stuff, and they're just like they're laughing and drinking and blah 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 blah. You know, having fun. Just like I wish we had more booze. Yeah, this is great, and and I think it's Katarina Devon just something like, "Hey, what did that Akainu prick say after that? After you lost or whatever?" And he's just like, and Kuzan's like, "Well, to think we came up together and now we gotta kill each other. It makes my blood boil." And then Kuzan's like, "Then I said that'll be the magma." So it's just like One Piece humor. So we get those jokes there. And kind of basically points out, yeah, that's what happens. That's why, I lost a leg during all of that. So now he has to use his ice leg and everything. Which, I mean, at the very least, his devil fruit's at least capable of helping with that, the way that Perospero's is with having his candy arm. After what happened with Pedro, if Perospero is even still alive at this point in time. Still hasn't been confirmed yet. I don't really care who gets that devil fruit if he is dead. But so it's just like it's that similar concept. And we know that Aokiji has the ice leg. We saw that in Film Z, and we saw that in some other stuff where that was revealed. And it's just like, I think it's Avala Pizarro's just like well, why didn't you just take his arm? And it's just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's banged up at this point in time. I mean, like, we know that, I think we saw that Akainu has, like, a new scar and such, so we know that he at least had a fair amount of, he still took a fair amount of damage during that fight, which, given what we know about the power that the Admirals have, it would make perfect sense for all three of them to be exceedingly well trained in both armament and observation Haki. Whether or not any of them actually had Conqueror's Haki is left up for debate. We know that Sengoku does, and I think basically last chapter pretty much confirmed that like Garp does. But whether or not any of the other three original admirals, or throw in Fujitora now and Ryukogu, if any of them have Conqueror's Haki, is a little bit left up for debate, because I'm just like, we haven't really seen anything that indicates that they would have Conqueror's Haki. Armament and observation, yes, and it's pretty much confirmed that like all vice admirals and rear admirals, I think, at least have observation and armament Haki. And then, as it goes, it just depends on the level and like what sea you're from. Because like Smoker was a captain in the East Blue, and he didn't know about Haki. And then, even though he was a Logia, he didn't know about Haki. And then, by the time we hit post time skip, Kobe, Helmeppo, and Tashigi all have Haki. At the very least, have observation and armament to some degree. So, all the admirals having Haki to, armament and observation Haki makes perfect sense. Whether or not any of them would have like the Ryuo Haki that like Luffy learned more about in Wano is a little bit left up for debate as well. Although if any of them would have it, I would assume it would be like Garp and Sengoku, just considering how much they probably had to deal with like Roger and Whitebeard and Odin to a degree, and Rocks. So there's a debate there. And then we have, they're still talking and everything back and forth. And then Katarina Devon brings up the man marked by flames. And Kuzan seems interested in this. And then Jesus Burgess just bursts out with like, yeah, there are 4, super valuable red poneglyphs out there, which of course they would kind of know about because Blackbeard's probably been researching stuff. And then of course, given being on Whitebeard's crew, he probably learned information about the road poneglyphs and stuff like that. So there's that. Also, he was at the island where, he was there when Whitebeard, Roger, and Odin were discussing the poneglyphs. So him knowing about the 4 poneglyphs would make perfect sense anyway. He just doesn't know where all of them are. And he's just like, yeah, apparently, they have one. Kaido and Big Mom each have one. We know that the minks have one in the whale tree, but we know, really hoping the Blackbeard pirates don't go after Zunisha and the minks. As much as it moves around, I would think that would be a harder target, but still. Also, well, give or take. And it's just like, so we know where 3 of them are, and we don't know where the 4th one is. We know that there was the 4th one that was at Fishman Island, but we don't know where it is because it seems to have been moved at some point in time. Either Whitebeard had it moved, or possibly Jinbei had it moved at some point in time, or Neptune had it moved. One of those 3 or something along those lines had it moved, and we don't know where it is. And Blackbeard may not have known that it was at may not know where that one was, because he doesn't mention anything about the minks, so he may not know that the minks had one, and then he may not know about that there was one at Fishman Island. We don't know, because even if he'd been to Fishman Island before with the Whitebeard pirates, he wouldn't necessarily have seen the poneglyphs that were there. And even if he did, well, I mean, he'd probably remember seeing the red one, but I don't know if they would have been to that area anyway. So that. And Blackbeard's like, yeah, there's 2 of them, 2 of them up for grabs, but there's no knowing where they are. So unless he's lying, he doesn't know that the minks have one, which is good. And he's just like, there's this man marked by flames that's rumored to have one. And Kuzan goes, I do? And then he just gets interrupted by Vasco, and he's just like, not you. You only got that scar recently. Just like, and given the fact we don't know if any of them have their devil fruits at this point in time. We don't know if Vasco Shot has his Glug Glug fruit. We don't know if Vela Pizarro has his Island Devil fruit. Shiryu definitely does not have the clear fruit yet. We know that. And we don't know if Katarina Devon has her, Kitsune fruit yet or not either. And, some of the other ones we don't know yet. We don't know if they've obtained them at this point in time because none of them are hinted at at this point in time. And this is also a year ago or a little over a year ago, depending on stuff. But, Lafitte's like, yeah, he said, it said that man can be found on a pitch black ship, and that anyone who sails near it ends up swallowed by giant whirlpools. He may have a devil fruit power. I mean, fair enough point, but also if he's in the new world, then there's all the crazy weather patterns that happen in the new world, and he may just have a very, very good navigator on the ship that's very much like Nami and is able to work their way through stuff and then be able to trick pirates into being drowned down one of those. Shiryu points out, yeah, I bet the world government has it, or whatever. It would make sense for them to hold on to one just to make sure that someone else can't find the One Piece, which a lot of people have pointed out anyway. That does make sense. If the world government knew where any of them were, the one that they would most likely have an idea of where it was the one down at Fishman Island, and we don't know when that one was moved. We don't know if that was moved when after Roger found it, and they I guess went back through Fishman Island and talked to Neptune again or whatever, and then later on Neptune had it moved or something like that, or when Whitebeard took protection over the island, if he had it moved then. We don't know if that was the case. But that one would make the most sense for the world government to have been able to get their hands on, because the other 3 we know exactly where they are. So, but I don't think that would have been something that Neptune would have allowed to happen, or something that Whitebeard would have allowed to happen for the world government getting their hands on it. So, but this is information we as the audience know, but not something that Blackbeard necessarily knows. And Kuzan even mentions there's the the poneglyphs hold nothing but, bitter memories for me, which is exceedingly true given everything that happened with Ohara and everything. And he's just like, I don't remember seeing any giant red, garish stone on Ohara, so it's not there. Which I don't know if he was on the ships the entire time, but they wouldn't know that. Or, well, not the entire time. He was on the ships a good portion of the time before he went and dealt with Saul and then let Robin go. And he was just like, all I remember is a dear friend standing against the world government and a traumatized eyes of a little girl that forced me to take fate into my own hands. So that is exceedingly references to Robin and everything like that. I don't think any of that of what Kuzan just said is a lie. And we know that the poneglyph was not on Ohara. We know that. Otherwise, Robin would have remembered seeing it as a child. And been much more familiar with what the road poneglyphs were beyond what she found out at, Zoe. So yeah, that's just like very much connects back to Robin and, Kuzan with what happened there and with Saul and everything on Ohara. So there's, that's very much evident there and everything. Yeah, taking fate into his own hands and everything. And I would say he's probably okay with where fate led Robin because she's at least now with the Straw Hats and he knows that they will keep her safe and everything. Lafitte kind of whispers to Blackbeard and he's just like, hey, do you think we should take his power and everything? And, blah, 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 blah. And then Kuzan probably just like, yeah, no, and just like, yeah, I can hear you, you a-hole, and I'll send you back to the Ice Age, blah, 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 blah. And it does look like he ends up like freezing a bunch of them because like, Blackbeard's like trying to calm him down. He's just like, no, my pals are just being idiots. It doesn't, I wasn't planning on doing that. In fact, I would like to, like you to join our crew. And we see that like Aokiji has like frozen Vasco and Pizarro in the next panel. So it's just like, okay, so they're frozen. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that given Akainu's level and the range of his Devil Fruit with what we've seen of how much he can freeze with what we saw at Marineford and what we saw when we were first introduced to him when he used the Ice Age and froze the giant Sea King and everything. Him being able to literally like freeze the entire Blackbeard pirates for the most part and then like solely deal with Teach because then Teach is exceedingly limited in how much power he can use because he wouldn't, because like Kuzan's not going to care if he like injures any of Blackbeard's crew by like smashing them or whatever while they're made of ice. Blackbeard is at least not going to want to do that because then he then has to deal with like building up a whole new crew and refinding the Devil Fruits if they had Devil Fruits. And he's not going to want to do that. So this is where we get it that he seems to have, asked Kuzan to join the crew. And a lot of them are like, oh my God, are you nuts, Captain? And he's just like, hey, you're basically out of a job, right? Got any other prospects? The Guardians of Justice dumped you, so what's next? I live by a different definition of justice. Kuzan's like, don't be a moron. You can't think a couple of drinks is enough to win me over. Just like, fair enough. And Blackbeard's just like, yeah, no, but, you got pirates all wrong. He's trying to convince him, it's the way that Blackbeard always is when he's trying to, like, pull one over on someone. We aren't just a merry bunch of scums, burning around, bumming around together. We all profit from having our own agendas. That's what makes us pirates. We're free now. You're free now, so what do you want to do? Which, yeah, I mean, clearly from what we see, at some point in time, Kuzan did take Blackbeard up on that offer. Whether or not that was before or after what happened at Punk Hazard, at the beginning of, after the time skip when they arrive at Punk Hazard, or at the end of Punk Hazard when Kuzan shows up and deals with Doflamingo, whether or not that was before or after that is left up for debate. But maybe at some point we'll end up getting more information about that. But we know that, like, Garp's trying to convince Kuzan to come, we get back to, present time, and Garp's trying to convince Kuzan to come back and, rejoin the Marines and everything, get your uniform back on and blah, 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 blah. And Kuzan's just like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. He's just like, you're still direct as ever, Garp, yeah. And Kuzan basically ends up saying, like, well, you're here to protect your new apprentice. What are you going to do against your old apprentice? Which we already knew that there was at least somewhat of a friendship between Garp and Kuzan, given some of the flashbacks we've seen and stuff like that. So we already knew some of that was there. Some of that friendship bond was there. So, that's nice that it's referenced here, but it also means that at some point in time, maybe Kuzan was Garp's apprentice. Maybe. We don't know exactly. That's a little bit left up for debate. But we end up getting this moment where Kuzan tries to freeze Garp. Well, technically he succeeds and, just freezes Garp in a giant ice ball. And Garp is just like, yeah, no, that's not going to do much against me. And he just like shatters his way out of it, which is kind of cool. And then he grabs Kuzan and then just slams him into the ground. And through parts of the ground, which Garp, given the amount of time he probably spent around all three of the initial admirals, in regards to watching them come up as vice admirals and then become the admirals themselves, that would make perfect sense if he knows exactly how to deal with, maybe not deal with like all of them, but like at the very least be able to deal with them up to a certain degree. And yeah, so him being able to deal this type of damage to Kuzan is not surprising. Just like, yeah, no, bam, right through the ground. Which I don't know if it's ever been stated if Kuzan gets knocked out, if his ice powers stop. I would assume not, because it's an elemental effect. Because it's not like if you knock out Ace, all of the fire that he set is just going to be like, oh, our master knocked out, just no more fire. I would assume that the effect would still last for a while. It's not like with Sugar's devil fruit or something like that, where it's just like, even until she's knocked out, you're gonna stay a toy. So even if they did knock Kuzan out, that doesn't necessarily mean that Hibari would unfreeze, but I'm quite certain that Garp would know how to defrost Hibari, given that he probably had to deal with like Kuzan freezing other recruits at various points in times for training and stuff like that. So there's probably that. Then we cut away from Hachinosu and we cut to Winter Island, where we see that the Polar Tang has been destroyed, and the Polar Tang submarine is just destroyed. Blackbeard is laughing his head off. And we see Law and Beppo lying on the ground. Presumably the other Heart pirates are probably somewhere on the submarine, or within the wreckage of the submarine, or on the island itself, still having been defeated by the other members of Blackbeard's crew that are there at the moment. And so you see that. We see Blackbeard laughing, and he's just like, blah, 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 you can't escape now. You can't win now, let alone escape, since your submarine's destroyed, which is, that is a good way of keeping them from escaping, is destroying their mode of transportation. So Blackbeard at least gets points for that. And he's like, a bunch of, he mentions the 100 hearts that Law took when he first became a warlord. And, it's like those hearts were from the Rocky Port. And we're pirates at the Rocky Port, so he's just like, I'm sure a bunch of those pirates will pay, be really happy if I show up with your hearts. And, or I could sell the Op no Mi or make you use immortal surgery on me. Could that work? You know, all that type of thing, you know, the possibilities. So it's just like Shanks knocked out Kid. Kid didn't put up really any form of a fight against Shanks because Shanks didn't let him. I'm assuming, well, we see that like Blackbeard's like bleeding, and probably some of the rest of his captains that were there probably got some damage done to them by Law and his crew. Law probably put up a decent fight against Blackbeard. So, you know, hope, you know, we at least know that Law put up a better fight than Kid did. Kid didn't really get much of a chance to put up a fight. Law at least did. We don't see Blackbeard mention anything about having the poneglyph rubbings, though. I will point that out. And depending on where those rubbings ended up, unless they were able to actually get the rubbings, they could be on the ship, and they could be like getting all soaked with water right now and getting destroyed. But I would think that Blackbeard would at least be trying to not have that happen. I would think he would be smart enough to try to prevent that from happening. And Law seems like he would be smart enough to probably put the poneglyph rubbings in something like a lockbox or like a waterproof box or a waterproof thing on the submarine, that unless that box itself is like broken, you're not going to be able to get, you know, the poneglyph rubbings are going to stay dry and safe until they can find someone that can read them. So there's that concept. I kind of thought of that. I'm like, well, that's a possibility. But we see Law and we see Beppo, and Blackbeard's just like laughing. And then we see like Beppo has like a slight, you know, little flashback where he remembers talking to Chopper, and Chopper's just like, well, I made this machine and it should be able, you know, this medicine, and it should be able to help you go Sulong even without the moon, but I don't know if it's going to work or not. Because it's not like Chopper's had a huge amount of time to study the Sulong, because he didn't find out about the Sulong form until Whole Cake Island, where he saw Carrot go into Sulong. And then even during the whole time when they were like on Wano for those 2 weeks, and then for like the additional week afterwards, you know, maybe he was able to figure out something where he could make something that could do that for Beppo, and it does appear to work. Because Beppo just goes, keep your paws off the captain, and he's just like, Beppo hulked out. Beppo just like hulked out. He's bigger than Blackbeard and Augur and Jesus Burgess. He's bigger than all of them, and he just like claws them across the chest, which is just like, good boy, Beppo. Good boy. And you know, I like Beppo. I like Sachi and Penguin too. I like the Heart Pirates. I like them a lot better than I like the Kid Pirates. Beppo is a giant cuddly polar bear. Most polar bears are not cuddly. Do not try to cuddle a polar bear. We have a polar bear at the zoo in Omaha, and it likes to swim a lot, which most polar bears do because they are semi-aquatic in certain regards, since they have to swim to different ice. But the polar bear's nice there, but I'm not going to attempt to cuddle it. Also, we know that Law and Beppo have this exceedingly strong relationships, just like he does with, you know, Sachi and Penguin. And, you know, Law is someone that saved Beppo when he was a kid from getting beat up on by Sachi and Penguin, and then the four of them formed, you know, the initial Heart Pirates Corps. So Beppo has looked at Law as like a brother to him for a long time. And Beppo probably didn't learn about losing Zeppo until they returned, you know, to Zou, and probably Pedro probably went to Beppo and told him about it. The fact that Zeppo was dead. So, you know, there's a lot that happened there. And now Beppo is like, he's watching his captain, who is basically like a brother to him, possibly going to be captured and or killed by Blackbeard. And he's not going to stand for that. He Sulonged out, took it, and he was just like, they know what Sulong is, so Blackbeard at least knows what Sulong is, so he knows that he knew that he was a mink anyway, because they had like a mink captive as one of their captured possible slaves that they had. So he at least knows what minks are, and he at least knows that they can go Sulong, but it's like, you know, there's no moon or blah 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 blah. And like, Augur and Burgess try to attack Beppo, and Beppo just seems to like grab Law. I don't know if he like puts him in his hand or if he like puts him on, like grabs him and like shoves him into like all the fur that's coming off of him or whatever. And he just like runs off and, runs into the ocean because like Beppo can swim. As I mentioned, polar bears can swim. Beppo can swim. We've seen Beppo swim before. And he's swimming, and Law's trying to get him to go back for the others. We can't abandon our crew. And Beppo is just like, we can't go back, but trust them, Captain. From the freezing ports of the North Blue, of the North till now, we've always survived. None of us will let it ever end. None of us will let us end here. And Beppo is just like swimming off. I can't tell. Yeah, it looks like he's gone back into his regular form. So he's like swimming and he's probably holding on to Law I think it looks like Law's on the back of him. Like he's like, Law's like laying on the back of Beppo, which Beppo is pretty good sized. And, this is harkening back to what happened in, Wano when Law traded himself for Beppo, Sachi, and Penguin at the prison gallery against Hawkins, so that way Law, Sachi, Beppo, Sachi, and Penguin could be freed, and then Law took their spot, so that way they wouldn't be hurt, and such, which is very much a thing that Law would do. It's a thing that Luffy would do. Kid may even do that for his crew. But it harkens back to the fact that, like, Law, we saw Beppo get kind of angry with what happened with that. And we know that Law escaped, so that's not an issue. But we know that Beppo was trying to, like, rally the rest of the crew, the rest of the Heart Pirates at that point in time, trying to get them to want to either go and try to save Law, or just be like, the captain didn't want us to come and try to save him. He wanted us to go and then make sure that the others didn't try to screw up the plan. Or whatever. But, we saw how, concerned Beppo was about Law. And now Beppo has the ability to do something to protect Law. And Beppo is also thinking, it's like, we've overcome so much together, so don't you dare die, Captain. Please don't die. And we get, on, Winter Island, New World, on this day, the Heart Pirates, led by Trafalgar Law, were soundly defeated. Whereas when it came to Kid, I think it said, did it say annihilated or destroyed? One of the two, something along those lines, where it indicated that, yeah, barring something extreme, those ones aren't coming back. Beppo saved Law. Minks have the ability to find Zoe. Beppo can find his way to Zoe. Or he can try to swim back to Wano and get help there. Or depending on how far they are from some of the other islands, there's a possibility he could end up at Egghead, or he could end up at a different island that we just haven't been introduced to, and get there and get medical treatment for Law. Because I was trying to remember where the different pirate, like what order the different ones are, because I was going to say, depending on which order Law ended up at, which island, the order that like Elbath and Egghead and Winter Island were. I don't remember which order they were in. If there's the distinct possibility that Beppo could end up swimming or ending up at Elbath. And Shanks is not going to attack someone who is injured. That is not the way that Shanks works. If they ended up at Elbath, if Beppo ended up at Elbath with Law, Shanks would give them sanctuary because they're clearly not a threat at that point in time. Both of them are injured, and both of them have lost their crew at that point in time. The other members of the Heart Pirates could very easily end up washing up on Winter Island. Blackbeard may take them captive since Law got away, and he can use them as bait to get a hold of Law, but they're much more valuable to him alive. Sachi, Penguin, Jean Bart, Ikaku, all the others. They are much more valuable to Blackbeard alive at this point in time as hostages and bait to get Law and Beppo to come back and try to save them. They are much more valuable that way than they are dead. I'm not saying they all survived. I would assume some of the main ones definitely are still alive. They're just either in the wreckage of the polar tang or on the island or floating in the ocean. Since none of them have devil fruits, they should be fine. Law was the only one that we knew that distinctly had a devil fruit, and given the fact that Beppo is swimming right now, he doesn't have one. And given the fact that, we saw Sachi and Penguin in the water earlier on, they definitely don't have devil fruits. Or otherwise we would have been introduced to them having devil fruits already at this point in time, I would assume, just given the amount of time that we've been around them, and Onigashima and Wano and everything, that would have been revealed if they had any. So, yeah. Beppo has Law. We'll see where they end up. We'll see if they end up finding a place where they can get medical treatment for Law. And even if, as long as Law is still conscious, I would assume that he would be able to at least somewhat instruct Beppo in doing certain things in regards to bandaging and things like that. Also, I'm sorry. You would think if I was on Law's crew, even if he's the doctor, I would at least be like, okay, teach me basic medical stuff in regards to like distributing first aid, CPR, different things like that. Just show me how to do some of that stuff so that way I know what I'm doing if someone else gets hurt and you're not around. Or if you're really, really busy because a bunch of us got hurt, I can at least help in that regard. I don't know if Beppo, Sachi, and Penguin or if Law at some point are just like, okay, you three are going to come with me. You're going to at least learn how to do basic first aid treatment. And then like maybe Beppo can do that again, do that with Law. And stuff like that. If they find another island and Beppo can take care of him there, if they ended up back at Wano, if they end up at Zoe, if they end up somewhere else, Elbath, Egghead. I doubt it's going to be Egghead. I was going to say, if they end up going toward Egghead, at the very least, I don't know if Beppo is going to be in the condition to be able to make it past a bunch of the different Navy battleships that are going to be there and get to where the Straw Hats are. Because even if he does get there, he doesn't know that that's where the Straw Hats are. He doesn't know that. And if they end up at Elbath, Shanks isn't going to hurt them. They're two injured people, and Shanks is probably going to give them medical treatment and food, and then find out what happened. Particularly if he finds out that Blackbeard is the one that attacked them, because had Law ended up at Elbath, Law would not have tried to just outright start attacking Shanks and his crew. So Shanks wouldn't have done what he did. He would have tried to reason with Law. And Law probably would have tried to, be amicable and try to do what he could to reason with Shanks, maybe fought him in a fair duel. Probably still lost, but still at least did a fair duel to see who would win. And, whatever the case may be. But, so there's different possibilities for where Law and Beppo could end up. They could just also end up on, like, another random island. So we'll see how that goes. Comment on the comment that I wanted to make about the man marked by flames is, yes, we know that it's definitely not Aokiji. He's had the scars very recently. The man marked by flames that's on a pitch black ship. I don't know what to say about that. It could be Sol. It could still be Sol. That's the man marked by flames. Given, we know that he's still alive and everything, and on Ohara and on Elbath with a bunch of the books from Ohara, so there's that. I was going to say, like, Shanks' ship, but they would know if it was Shanks' ship that had, like, the man marked by flames on it, and also Shanks' ship is not black. It's a giant ship with a dragon head on it, and it's definitely not a black ship. Maybe it's the Black Pearl from Pirates of the Caribbean. Maybe that's what it's on. Maybe Jack Sparrow has the last poneglyph. I don't know. I have Pirates of the Caribbean on the mind because I'm working on a video that involves Pirates of the Caribbean with One Piece and Disney. I don't know, that looks like fun. It's a video I'm working on. It'll probably be up next week once I get it finished. But I don't know where else to put that. I don't know exactly. It could be possible that Sol could have the final poneglyph, but again, that poneglyph was at Fishman Island. And unless Whitebeard got a hold of it and put it somewhere, unless Whitebeard knew about Saul, I don't see that happening. I don't see that being the case. I know that I'm pretty sure there's a theory out there where like maybe that like Dragon has the last road poneglyph. But if that was the case, he probably would have shown it to Robin while she was with the Revolutionary Army. Also, Dragon ship, that's the Revolutionary Army ship with the dragon on it, it's not black. So again, that kind of just gets rid of that. But it kind of goes along with like, oh, there's like storms that show up and then like all the boats sink. That would imply Dragon with like his supposed devil fruit. So I don't really know where to put some of that. So that's my thoughts for this. This ended up being longer than I wanted it to be, but okay. That's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Oh, my birthday's Saturday, and Mom and I are going to go see Dungeons and Dragons in theaters. So that'll be fun. Also, there's a possibility maybe I will buy cupcakes, but we'll see how that goes. So that's what we have. Bye.